Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and it is my honor to host this show, the Listening Mentor program. And we are going to be focusing on unlocking the power of listening skills in your work from home routine. So wherever you are in the world, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening, whether you're listening live on the replay or on a podcast platform, we are thrilled to have you here with us. If you like the content that we're sharing, please do spread the word and also go and subscribe to our channels on YouTube, USA Global TV and Radio, and Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Now, let's welcome the star of our show. Her name is Caroline.heward, and she is in the United Kingdom. And she's known as the Harley Street stress expert, helping people bust their stress. She's also one of our expert presenters on Talking Heads, and she's also a TV show host of The Woman's Prerogative, episode 2. I'm sorry, show number 2. We have 2 shows each week. We're on hiatus for one, but that will be coming back hopefully soon. So let's welcome Caroline to the program. She's here with us right now. Hello.
Hello.
hello. I got tongue-tied for a moment there. So
there's so many things I do. I didn't realize.
I know. It's an absolute pleasure that you're here with us today, especially on this show, The Listening Mentor, where we are bringing unscripted conversation and dialogue in the effort to help people learn how to find some peace, inner peace, and have better and more effective conversations and relationships. Caroline, tell our audience who's joining us for the first time a little bit about why you're so passionate about helping people.
Thank you, Dr. Jacalyn. I'm passionate about helping people because most people don't realize when that they're stressed and they're suffering. They're looking for answers, but they don't quite know where to go, where to look. And so being on this platform in particular means that it allows me the opportunity to reach more people, to help more people. I'm very passionate about helping people because I come from a place where I was suffering with stress, anxiety, and depression in different times of my life. And I've solved those myself without using pharmaceutical medication. and through all the different things, the modalities that I've learned. And I'm really passionate about helping others that are probably not aware to become aware and to be living a much more peaceful and happier life. You don't know what you don't know, and that's why I'm passionate about educating people and helping people live a better life. My whole thing is about busting your stress, whether it be physical, emotional, mental, or behavioral, whether it's a relationship you're complaining about, or whether it's somebody that's going through a grieving process, whether it's somebody that has anger management issues, whether it's somebody that's got physical ache and pain. I can help you break through the patterns that cause the problems that are causing your stress-related symptoms, however they may appear in your life. You move from feeling stressed to a place of feeling inner peace, calm, and have incredible night's sleep.
And sleep is very important. When we are sleep deprived, we can be endangering ourselves as well as others. So please do reach out to Caroline. The contact information is in the notes. Caroline, let's talk about why you came up and how you came up with this topic about the power of listening skills in your work from home routine.
Well, I was thinking, what should I do as a topic? And when I was thinking about the fact that so many people now are working remotely, so many people now, there's much more of a culture of working from home, or even working remotely within an organization, sort of what they call that hybrid. So doing some time in the office and some time at home. And if you have family, so if you're in a relationship and you have children, how does that relate to how you can work peacefully and yet still get the job done and cope with all the other distractions? And I just felt that it is a situation that so many millions, billions of people are in, that it was worth having a conversation about and doing a show about. So that's how I came up with the topic. And I don't know why we haven't covered it earlier on than this.
That's funny. Yeah, I don't know why either. I actually have worked from home for decades. I had to go to an office at one point, but it is interesting because there's so many distractions when you're at home. Now, I live by myself, so I don't really have distractions, but we have distractions in our mind. So it's difficult to be present. And you and I have discussed this because we've had over the years a number of role plays. People can be looking right at you, but that doesn't mean that they're actually listening to you. So when we're on virtual platforms or virtual calls, it's difficult to actually get someone's attention. So what have you discovered as a therapist and how this is impacting people?
Well, I've seen Zoom calls and conference calls where you've got some training, and I've seen people eating their lunch, eating dinner, drinking wine, smoking recreational substances, or they've not got their camera on. I mean, I've seen it all. It's like it's almost like they don't realize that people can see. And so that it's almost like it's become a more relaxed, almost like they're watching the telly, and so they're doing all sorts of other things, and they're just hopping up and putting the kettle on and making a drink. I mean, I was in a 1 hour networking meeting that was a business forum, and I did 2 meetings. And in the one meeting, it was an all ladies meeting, and there was they did breakout rooms, and so there were 4 of us. And both times that we were in the breakout rooms, there was someone that when I began to speak and had my kind of 3 minutes, that somebody got up and disappeared, didn't apologize. And so I did my bit, and then they came back. And then on the second time that we had 4 of us, that somebody just got up, didn't say anything. And then when I'd finished my bit, they came back to the camera, and I just thought it was really odd. I didn't feel very good about that experience, and I'm not going to go back. And I'm wondering whether to give that feedback to the organizer of the meeting. But this is what I have experienced, that people, I feel, aren't giving it the attention. And that was something that, it was a very dedicated hour. But this is something that I feel is going on, that people will not go on camera because they're maybe doing their ironing, or maybe, having lunch or dinner, or they're doing something else. But you can't listen and be doing whatever you are in terms of that online forum.
That's very true. It's interesting here, and I don't always share this with people, but when people are backstage, I can see them and the things people are doing. Just like, hello, please leave your clothing on. And people are they're using those vape things and they're, sucking down drinks and whatever because they think no one can see them. But what I really find is, especially when I'm behind this green screen, I put on a different persona. So I'm dressed and ready to go. I am paying attention. As you know, there's no script, so I have no idea what I'm going to ask you. And that means I really have to be listening. I mean, you and I have good chemistry. We've been working together for years. So it's easy flow for us, I think, compared to some other people maybe who haven't worked together before. But I think when you are multitasking, which I used to say, oh, I can do 6 things at the same time. Yeah, I guess I could, but I wasn't doing them too effectively. So can you discuss a little bit as a therapist, even when we think we're really being successful by doing numerous things at the same time, how that could come back to bite us?
Yes, and it's a really good, interesting analogy that you thought you could do 6 things, and now you have the understanding and the awareness that it's not possible to do 6 things effectively. And this is what we're shown in terms of our corporate lives, that we're much more productive if we can do many things at once. But in my training and in my many years of training and therapy work, I have now the understanding, and I've worked it out because I sort of thought, well, if I do admin, then I'm very quiet and calm and focused and looking through the paperwork, and it gets done, and it gets done very efficiently. Now, if I get a phone call while I'm doing that admin, I can get thrown off. I'll do the phone call, have all the attention with that person, forget where I am. And I certainly did it yesterday, where I was filling in a form. I did a really nice email to send the form off to a company that I'd been speaking to that day. And they came back and said, oh, it's really lovely to chat to you. We don't seem to have the attachment. Could you send it for us to look at, please? And so then I felt really silly. And that was because I got distracted by a phone call, and then I forgot, and I just sent the email. So I don't believe that you can do many things, because it's easy. If you're a juggler and you're juggling all the balls, it's very easy to miss one and lose one. Now, one of the things that I learned is that if you put different and similar tasks together, you get more done. So if I do admin in terms of going through my invoices and going through my accounts, I do very well and it goes through quickly. But if I stop and then do something else and go back to it, I slow up. Or if I do a different type of task, then it takes hard to get into the rhythm of it. So it's sort of like, and I've learned that through doing it. If I sort of stop, start and do different things, 2 or 3 different things, then the energy momentum of doing that one job, that one task, loses momentum. And so I lose time. And also in my training, I have learned and discovered that it takes 20 minutes to change from one task to another, one energetic task to another. So if I'm doing admin and then want to do something else that requires my attention in a different way, you almost have to energetically align with that new task and that new thing that you're going to do. And so you almost are not very productive for the first 15, 20 minutes, and then suddenly you get into the rhythm of it. And so if I'm interrupted with a phone call, for instance, and I have that phone call and I think it's a break, when I go back to my accounts, it just takes me longer to pick up where I left off. And that's not just, for me personally understanding that and experiencing it. This is what happens. And so I find that putting all different tasks in one day not very helpful. So if you do admin, and I call my days, I'm having an admin day, and I just roll through it and it all gets done. Or I take an admin hour and I just do admin, and it's very productive and I'm very attention to detail. But then when I'm in a call, I'm in a meditational state. So it is about making sure that you use the time wisely and you get more productive if you're focused in one task.
Very, very true. And, I just want to add for our audience that I actually conducted a role play. I've done this in teaching courses in person as well as online, where there were two people and I instructed one person to do something like write down the 50 states in the US. And at the same time, someone would come behind them and talk to the back of their head. And how many states could they get right, and how much information did they glean from what the person was saying, and then how did the person who was talking to the back of their head feel about talking to the back of their head. And it was really eye-opening for some people, because people think that you can hear someone when you're doing something else, but if you can't focus on two things at the same time. And I think that's where people start to struggle, because they feel that they're not heard, or they're not succeeding in their work, for example, because while they're at home, they secretly have the television on, maybe on the other side of the computer, or someone's talking to them or waving to them, or they're looking at their phone, and then mistakes happen because they're not fully present. So what are some of the positive suggestions that you have for people who are working from home and they want to do a good job, but at the same time, maybe they've got attention deficit order? Maybe they have anxiety or mental health issues, and it challenges them to be fully present when they're not really able to be.
Well, it's so important to make sure that you are fully present when you're working for somebody. And there is challenges with employers and companies maintaining high productivity. And there are different ways that employers check in. I've heard of some employers actually checking keystrokes per hour of how their employee is working away from their offices and remotely. And so one of the things that I would suggest, and I've certainly sort of done this myself, is set a target. If you've got a certain amount of things to do, if you were working, how far would you get in your company environment? How much would you get done? And almost, block everything else out and treat it as if like this is an extension of your office, and that you're not going to nip downstairs, if your office is upstairs, which mine is, nip downstairs, put the kettle on, make a drink, and then, chat to your partner or the children, and then go up half an hour later, because we wouldn't do that in our company and our environment, within our working environment in the business. So it is important to be respectful of what it is that you're doing, of not only the person that you're working for, but your time, because you can be far more productive if you set yourself a stall of what you want to achieve. And certainly that's how, working from home myself, I'm not working for an organization, I'm working for myself. But when I set out to achieve something, and then something comes in and I have to drop everything, and it might be a personal issue that I have to deal with, then I drop everything, and then I focus on that, get it done, and then pick it up again. And I feel that, to be target driven, to be mindful that you are working for a company if you are working remotely, and to set yourself targets in terms of how much you want to achieve within each hour, what tasks that you want to achieve within each hour, and then keep an eye on it in terms of timing. If you're at the computer, there's always a little clock in the corner of your computer that you can check in and make sure that you are adhering to getting your results through your timing and getting everything done. So it is about being vigilant and being focused. And you can't be focused sometimes if you have the TV on. I have complete silence. I used to work with a radio on a long, long time ago, but I now work in total silence, and I just get so much done. And the other thing that I do, which if you're working for a company is probably not a sensible idea, I get a lot done at night. So if I work from, say, midnight to 3 a.m, I get more done in those 3 hours than I would if I was working 12 till 3 in the afternoon, because there are no distractions and it's much, much quieter. But I'm not suggesting that you do that. That's just something that I have worked out for myself. If I have some things like admin to do, that I can do without distraction.
Very true. And I think something else, because I remember this when I was in corporate, you come into the office. I'm going to give a different example, I suppose, from being home, but you come into the office, you go into the conference room, you sit at the table. And even though you're present, you're physically there, that still doesn't mean that you're mentally there, because we can't control someone's mind. And what I remember is that my boss would pick on the same people who would always raise their hand, but then would go around and say, hey, we haven't heard from you, Susan. What are you thinking? And then Susan was daydreaming, expecting not ever to be called on, right? And so would have to say, you know what, I really wasn't paying attention. So the same thing can happen whether we're in person or we're not. And I think what it really can come down to is, if you love what you do, if you value what you do, you want to make positive contributions. So how can you limit the distractions? And one thing for me, which I have it right here, I went back to, I've got my headphones. So I did a show last night and I put the headphones on, and I felt like I was fully present because there was something going on outside. And I thought, this is a good way for me to stay where I am. Interestingly, because when I'm hosting, I'm also producing. So I have to be aware of, other things that are going on. So it's like, I'm not 100% either, because I'm doing two things at one time. So if you are someone who is doing two things at one time, and I'll give an example. Let's say you are a team member in corporate, you're working from home, but you're also a team leader. So you're a leader in one aspect, and then you're a contributor in another aspect. So sometimes it's like you're wearing two different hats on the same call.
Well, that's management. That's how management works. You've got to have the two hats. You've got to have the team player, and you've got to have the management hat on. And that's, that has a variety of skills, people skills, and time management, and managing what you need to do specifically, personally, as a manager, as a team leader, and what your requirements in terms of being a team player. And people are recruited and they're elevated into management positions because they can do that, because it's a skill. And I don't believe that, and although in the UK particularly, there is a lot of people that, because they're good in one aspect, they tend to get promoted to being a manager, but the management job is quite different to doing what they were doing previously. And so they're not as adept, because to be a manager, there is a certain amount of skills, people management skills, and much more active listening skills that maybe a team member might not require to do the role that they're doing in the way that the manager would. And I certainly have worked for many managers that were not qualified or trained. And so they were in the management position, but not actually performing that well as a manager as they were as a team member. So it requires different skills, and it requires for you to be actively comfortable to be looking after what you need to do as a manager, as well as looking after your team. So I see many people that come to me that are in those types of roles, that they're everything for everyone and not really there for themselves. And when they're like that, they're not really focused on themselves. And so they suffer, because that's where stress comes in, because they're totally focused, and they can be very drained at the end of a day, because all their energy is going into other people and making sure that they do the job they need to do. So they lose a lot of energy, and so they're very much preoccupied with everything around them, and only at the end of the day do they think about themselves, and they realize they're exhausted.
It's so true. I love the way that you just summed that up. And I have a personal example. I'm very involved with the Crohn's Colitis Foundation. And when I first joined, I think in 2018, I was doing volunteering. So then I was a team captain for different sporting events where we were raising money. And then I was a support group facilitator. And then I was honored with becoming a board member. And I remember I met with a couple of people in the home office, and they were both like, listen, you're doing incredible work, but at some point you're going to burn out, because you're working your career. You're also a patient. You have to monitor your health. And I was like, no, I can do everything. I can definitely do everything. But there was a point when I really really thought, you know what, I really can't do everything because, and the pressure to raise the money also, that was a huge one. And then of course my mom got sick. So I took a step away, and I'm going to be re-engaging very soon. And I'm going to be very careful of what it is that I make a commitment to do, because I do have to put my health first. And when you're going in so many different directions, you're bound to drop the ball. And then if you, for example, don't fundraise the amount of money that you committed to, or you don't have a support group meeting that you said you were going to, then you're really letting other people down because you took on too many things.
Oh, I so agree with you there. I've been in the position of volunteering in all sorts of capacities over the years, a give back. There was one year that I was vice chairman for the Chartered Institute of Marketing of the Central London Group and organising their programme of events for the year. And reporting directly to the head office as well as my chairman. And I was the one that was kind of doing all the day-to-day nitty-gritty, and this was voluntary and unpaid. I was also managing a ladies networking group that met in Mayfair, a lunch group once a month. So there was a lot of work to do with that, and it was all voluntary and unpaid. And I was also looking after a breakfast group and chairman of that in the same year, as well as doing some stuff for another organisation that was a personal self-development organisation. And I was wearing different chairman's roles for that. And so it was fun, it was good, it was, and I did it all. But when I stopped, I realized that I was exhausted. I had to kind of reel myself in. So it can give you an adrenaline kick, which is what I had. And I really was enjoying it. But then when I stopped, I realized that I hadn't really got enough energy, and I was working off my adrenals, and I was quite tired. And so when I stopped all those different roles, and so it's very easy to just get caught up because it gives you a buzz, it gives you a thrill. My mum always used to say to me, you're always doing this, that, and the other. Why don't you just stop and focus on one thing? But it just gave me it gave me the thrill. And it was something that I feel kept me energized and kept me young. But as I've got older, I think that you have to cut your cloth accordingly, and you have to say, well, I can't do too many things. And because as soon as I commit to doing a voluntary role for somebody, I'm all in. And that's what one of my ex-boyfriends said, you're either all in or all out, you're not in between. I will do everything with bells on. And if I don't have the time, then I get frustrated and I get annoyed that I can't give everything that I want to give, and I don't get the results. So I'm very careful now, because I do like that little bit of volunteering because it gives me a buzz.
Yeah, it's so true. And thanks for sharing your personal story as well. It's very meaningful. I know I've shared this with you, but I don't know if I've shared it with our audience, but there was a time in my life that wasn't that long ago that I was working in corporate, and then I worked a part-time job doing makeovers, but yet I was working in a retail store. And then I was running auctions on my own store on eBay, 60 auctions a week. And I was getting my doctorate. And with eBay, I was doing all the packing and all the shipping. So, and then I was doing my doctorate at night, which is a huge undertaking. Some people just focus on their doctorate. So I had the corporate career where I was it was a lot of stuff. And I used to get 3 or 4 hours of sleep. And I was so proud of myself. I was like, oh, look at me going. I'm like indestructible. But, as you look back over it, you realize how ridiculous it was, because your health, I have health issues, your health's really jeopardized because you're doing so many things. But there is an incredible rush, and then a feeling of accomplishment, and that you are ultra powerful because you're able to get so much done. But if you look at it from a therapist perspective, what would you say if someone like myself came to you and said, hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this, I'm doing that? What would you share?
Well, that's all great. And how are you? And how are you coping? Are you sleeping okay? Because how are they feeling when they stop? And the reason that they usually reach out to me is because something's wrong. And usually something's wrong either in their physical health, or something's wrong in their relationship, in terms of family or in their intimate relationship. And so it comes out in other ways. You know, they will say, oh, I'm not sleeping, but I take sleeping pills. Or they'll say something like, you know, I seem to have a constant headache, but they're drinking lots of coffee. And it's because it's a strategy. It certainly was a strategy that I did, and I wore it, you know, with a badge of honor. And I always write a Christmas newsletter and put it in a Christmas card. And many of my friends said, I was dizzy looking at all the things you did. You know, how did you fit it all in? And I hadn't put half the things that I was doing in that newsletter. So I was getting feedback, and I certainly don't do as many things as I used to do, but I do meet a lot of people, both in, you know, as a client or in terms of my networking and my interactions with people that are very busy doing lots of things. And my question would be, what is making you fill the time in the way that you are? Because they are distractions, and even we're getting something from it. And what is it that you're getting that is not working in your life? Because there'll be something really great in what they're getting from it. Usually it's a strategy to hide from something that's not working within the family or the relationship. And so when I see people that are very successful, super successful in their work, in their occupation and their voluntary capacity, but then when you look into their personal life, there's things that are not working. It's like it falls apart. And so for some people, it's a strategy to be feeling accomplished and not have to face what's not working personally. And I certainly was in that situation when I was married. I was doing a lot of things outside of the marriage because it wasn't working, and not even realizing it was a strategy that worked so that I still felt okay. And it was only when I stopped, and it was Christmas, that we both reflected that, you know, I hadn't actually been home very much because I was at this committee meeting, that committee meeting, this event, that event, and I hadn't really been home in the evening. So I did a full day at work, and then I was at different meetings, not coming home till late. So I was failing in my being in that relationship and actually being fully present in it.
Well, again, thank you for your honesty. I think something that it's like the chicken or the egg, which comes first. So if you're in a relationship where you don't feel valued or you don't feel heard, sometimes that is the course that we'll take. What is it that does bring me joy? If it doesn't bring me joy to spend the evening with you, then I'm going to go find something else that does, as opposed to potentially maybe opening that door, that can of worms, where now we have these long drawn out conversations every night, and you're thinking to yourself, I just can't take another one of these. I'd rather be bowling, for example, whatever it might be. I'm not a bowler, but so then when you start to look at it, enough time has passed and the other person is now really aware of the fact that you're not around, then it's kind of like, is it even too late? Because there's so much distance between the two of you, and it was working because you were out doing something else and the other person was apparently okay with it. I'm not saying you, I'm saying in general. But on the other side, let's say you and I are very ambitious and we have a lot of energy, thank God. But if we end up with a partner who isn't ambitious, someone who their favorite thing is, you know, at the end of the day, let's watch TV and eat some bonbons. Let's watch a movie on TV. I have a very hard time sitting and watching anything. Like, I can't just sit there and watch. So I'll have something on the computer, maybe on Netflix or Amazon, not a paid spokesperson. But at the same time, I'll be listening to it, but yet I'll be doing something, you know, but I'm not fully engaged in it. But if I've seen the movie already, because I know what to expect, but I could not just take 2 hours and just sit there. I can't do it.
Well, I so hear you, because I've put a movie on and then I've taken a call, or I've thought, oh, I must do this email, and then the movie is on, and before I've realized it, 2 hours has gone by, and then I go back and I didn't see it, and I just got caught up with doing something else, and that happens so often. But there are times that it's good to take a chill pill and sort of stop, because, sort of whatever it is that you do that makes you recharge, one of mine, some of the things that I do is dancing and meditation, and I feel really good. So it's an activity in its entirety of doing nothing else. But I do so hear what you're saying about having something on the TV, but then getting preoccupied with doing something else. And I just then, when I realize I'm doing it, I just switch off the TV, and the TV only goes on in the evening for a few hours. And if there's something that I really want to watch, then I will, sort of have that as what I call downtime. And when I do that, I actually enjoy it. So it's like being fully present to enjoy a movie and then get something from it. One of my challenges is that a lot of movies these days seem to be fighting and guns and that kind of thing. And I just think, I can't do this. This doesn't, that seems to be a lot of movies these days. So I like to watch drama without all the fighting and the killing. Sort of there does seem to be a lot of that in a lot of movies. And as soon as I see certain characters that I know are very much in that fighting mode, I just think, I won't bother. So it's that's everybody's, what everybody likes and what's right for you. So I don't watch a lot of television, and when I do, I enjoy what I watch. But I frequently find that if I'm distracted doing something else, it's because I'm not really in the movie and I'm not enjoying it. But yes, distraction, even when you're chilling, is just as important. I tend to switch off the TV and almost go to sleep early, and then I wake up at some ridiculous o'clock, as you well know I do.
Yes, I know that you're working at midnight oil, so to speak. But I've also known people who were married and then they became single again, and they have to have all kinds of, it could be music, the television, every room something's playing because they can't stand the sound of the silence. And for me, I love the silence. I don't like the noise. I don't have a television in my bedroom. In fact, I don't have any television that's working at the moment because we're packing up, but I don't even watch regular television. I don't know. I don't want all those commercials. And I just feel there's so much negativity out there. I'd rather listen to something like what we're talking about, something on our platform. But many people feel very much alone or isolated if they don't have some kind of noise playing in the background, even taking a shower. I mean, I know people who have a radio in their shower. It's like, oh my gosh, I just want to hear the rainfall and the waterfall, or even if you're looking outside and you hear the rainfall, it's comforting, it's soothing in some way. But we're coming to the last part of our show, so I'd love to have you share anything that we didn't discuss today that you think is important for people who want to learn, who want to have a more peaceful life, who are working from home. What do you have to share?
Thank you, Dr. Jacalyn. God, that went really quickly, didn't it? Boundaries. I want to talk about boundaries within working from home. And like we've just shared, the fact that I will work, later. And that's because I live alone. But if I was in a relationship, I might be a bit different and have more formal hours where I switch out and stop. Boundaries, especially if you're working from home remotely and you're in a relationship, you have family, I think that's really important to set aside boundaries within your working environment and to ensure that you do take breaks, because I've frequently been glued to my computer doing things, and then I've been so focused on what I'm doing, especially if I'm creating a presentation or I'm doing some accounts work in particular. And why I'm talking about accounts is I've got a deadline looming, which is the end of this month, and I know that it has to be done, and so I will put all my energy into doing that and work all that, and then tire myself out because I'll probably do 8 hours straight without even coming away from the screen, and that is not good. So healthy boundaries, make sure that you take breaks away from the screen, and also make sure that if you're in a normal working environment, you would have a lunch break. So make sure that you take a break and have something to eat, because if you're not, by the time that you've done 6 hours, your body internally is flailing. So it's important to have breaks as well as be productive, because if you do 8 hours straight, you won't be as productive as taking short breaks.
You hit the nail on the head. Thank you so much for that. Well, we're at the end of this episode. It literally flew by with roller skates. So, Caroline, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you, and who would be a good client for you?
Thank you, Dr. Jacalyn. You can get in touch with me either via Facebook. You can follow me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and you can reach out to me on email, nomorestress@live.co.uk, or call if you're international +44. If you're local, 07523 120 189. The kind of person that I would love to help is the kind of person that we've been describing, that's very distracted, very productive in work, and then finding that they're not able to relax, or they have physical pain in their body, not sleeping, or they're having any relationship difficulties or family difficulties. Also, a really good client for me, and something that I have a lot of attention on, is that we are in Mental Health Awareness Week. And so I would love to speak to the medical world in terms of providing talks for people within the mental health world, for the doctors, nurses, as well as patients, in terms of how they handle their stress, their physical, emotional, mental stress, because I know that what I share will really, really benefit you. And so I'd love the opportunity to speak to doctors, nurses, and people that are suffering within their environment of work, because they're either looking after patients or they're suffering themselves with the kind of hours and the intensity of work that they're doing.
Thank you, Caroline. Please do reach out to Caroline. I can tell you that she is a master at what she does, and you will have lots of peace and beautiful nights of sleep. So we're going to close out right now. And to all of our friends across the world, especially our friends in Florida, in Mexico, around the world, who are about to or have been impacted by the Milton storm, our thoughts and prayers are with you. Stay safe. Evacuate. If they tell you to evacuate, get out. We can always get more materialistic things, but we only have one life. So thanks again. Sending my love. Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Stay safe. Bye-bye.